Alright, we just finished covering the mosquito fire, so the next one that we're going to move on to is the Fairview Fire down in Southern California. Main reason I wanted to cover this was I was looking at some of the live cameras, and this fire is some of the most active behavior that I've seen this entire year. As I said on the mosquito fire, that's not really a big surprise that we're seeing such active wildfire behavior because it's an ongoing heat wave throughout California. Been covering it all week with some record-breaking temperatures. And when you have multiple days where it's this hot in a row, it really dries out a lot of those fuels. And you can end up looking like this with your fire getting that pyrocumulus development, which you can see with those clouds up there. So throughout this video, we're just going to look at the numbers, the weather, where exactly the fire is, and most importantly, where it's likely to spread in the future. Now, the first kind of indication we can use to try to figure out where it's going to spread into the future is looking at the satellite imagery. See a little smoke coming off of it this morning, not all that much, but then it starts to pick up this afternoon, which is where you start to see that pyrocumulus development. Key thing that I noticed though is that the smoke is blowing towards the west. The reason that's important is because whichever way the smoke is blowing, that tells you which way the wind is blowing. And then that tells you most likely which way the fire is going to spread throughout the day as long as those winds stay from the same direction. And that actually is one of my concerns because, as we'll see in a moment, that is where some of the structures near this fire are. So just getting our bearings here, you can see Los Angeles right there. Zooming into the Fairview Fire, it looks like it's to the east of Corona, south of Beaumont, south of, I think that's Hemet, hopefully pronouncing that right, and east of Sun City there. Zooming in, that red shading right there shows the previous fire perimeter, and then those red dots show where some of the active fire behavior was. So this tells me that yesterday I wasn't following this fire yesterday, but we most likely had westerly winds yesterday because it looks like a lot of that activity was showing up on the easterly side of the fire. Now the opposite seems to be happening now just based on the smoke we were just looking at. Seems like now the fire is going to be burning more towards the west as the winds push that fire and those active perimeters towards the west, which unfortunately will be towards some of these structures that we see near Ramona Bowl and Diamond Valley Lake. Now just looking at the numbers on this one, it just got updated about 11 minutes ago, and I noticed it went up by about 2,000 acres since the last update. So it's now up to 9,846 acres, 5% containment, and we have had some expansions of the evacuation orders and warnings. So you can find those by going to some of the links in the description. I put the links for CAL FIRE, Watch Duty. You can find a lot of the important evacuation information there. I usually don't cover that in my videos because unless you're watching this live, by the time you're watching it, most likely these evacuation orders will have been expanded again. So looking at the CAL FIRE website, we can find a little bit more information here. That acreage is yet to be updated, but we can zoom down to the bottom to see what kind of resources we have on it. Right now, this is showing 0 helicopters, 38 engines, 1 water tender, 286 personnel, and 9 crews. Hopefully, that stands for some updating as well to hopefully get some more resources on this. But we have multiple fires burning throughout the state of California, so this is where resources start to get spread a little bit more thin than if there's just one big fire going on. Now here's where some of the very bad news comes in on the Fairview Fire. Right now we have 7 structures destroyed, but more importantly we have reported 2 fatalities on this fire. So my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who has been affected by this fire and is unfortunately still in the path of this fire as we go forward. Now just zooming into this fire once again, just kind of want to get our bearings. We're in Southern California, zooming in. Once again, this map shows that a lot of the fire activity previously was on the eastern side of that fire, but when we turn the wind plots on, those arrows show that it's trying to push it towards almost the northwest, and the westerly direction. You know, that could actually be some good and some bad news. In the good side of things, if we had most of our activity on the east side and then we get the winds pushing it back into the burn scar, it'll be pushing it into an area where a lot of fuels have burned out in the past. Overall, though, I would say this wind shift is bad news, because if we look at the structures, when it was moving to the east, there were barely any structures whatsoever out here. But again, structures are those orange flashing dots right there. But if the fire moves towards the northwest and the west, that's where we have a very large amount of structures right there. And just want to confirm, does look like that's Valley Vista, East Hemet, Ramona Bowl, and Hemet overall. So hopefully I'm pronouncing those towns right, but that looks to be some of the places where this fire unfortunately is near, and looks to be, based on the winds, it looks like it will be spreading in that direction. Now, one other thing that we can always do is look at the fire history. So I'd say this is where some bad news comes in. Maybe I have the one little burn scar here from the 2004 citrus fire, but 2004 is a pretty long, or it's pretty far in the past. So a lot of the fuels in that area have had some time to come back. And then we're not seeing a lot of other activity directly around the fire, or anything really all that recent, except for maybe the cactus fire down here in the ranch fire. So there's going to be a lot of accumulating dry fuels here. The ongoing heat wave in California is going to continue to dry out some of those fuels and lead to some tricky weather conditions, or fire weather conditions. One other way to look at that is to actually look at some of the observations. These are actual stations on the ground. Looks like that one, 99 degrees as of right, max temperature today, which is probably right now. This is about the time you get your max temperatures. Min relative humidity, 22%. We could try another one. 100 degrees, 20% relative humidity. That one's 97 degrees, 23% relative humidity. Reason that's important is because the drier the air is, the drier the fuels are going to be, and the easier it is for that fire to spread. That's where temperature and humidity is very important, but overall, the most important factor when it comes to fire spread will be those winds. So I'm interested to see just how windy it is right now. Looks like we have those gusts around 20 to 25 miles per hour, and you notice the direction. This just confirms it again. Winds coming from the east, trying to push that fire closer towards those structures. Now, we pretty much know the situation right now. What I'm curious about is what it's going to look like tomorrow. And it does look like it's going to be changing somewhat. It looks like the winds are coming from a more northeasterly direction. But unfortunately, it also looks like it's going to be windier tomorrow with some gusts over 30 miles per hour. Temperature-wise, up in Northern California, we know it's going to be slightly warmer. Looks like we have another very warm day for Southern California in the 90s. And relative humidity right around that same 20%. So very tricky fire weather conditions. Given the fact that it's going to be windier tomorrow, I would actually expect the fire to be more active throughout the day tomorrow, which is not exactly an easy prediction to make, because right now, looking at the behavior on this fire, it looks just about as active as a wildfire possibly could be. So I'm definitely going to be keeping a close eye on this one. And then finally, we can just look at some of the air quality impacts right now. Not a big surprise, we have that unhealthy air quality where we have some of the smoke. And then tomorrow, the forecast for the air quality is still showing some unhealthy air right around that fire. I would imagine we actually end up getting a bit more unhealthy air from this, because the fire does look like it'll remain fairly active tomorrow. So to stay updated on the Fairview Fire as well as the Mosquito Fire, which I already did some updates on today, or any other wildfires throughout the rest of the season, you can subscribe to this channel where I do these wildfire updates as often as I can. So hopefully this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.